My new book, Facts That Aren't True, is out now. Don't forget about my other book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions. At long last, not only are the fallacy videos back, but Kitty Cam is back. Who's a kitty cat, huh? Today we're discussing a hasty generalization, and this is a fallacy that somebody commits when they make broad, sweeping conclusions or statements based on a small sample, an unrepresentative sample, or just insufficient evidence. Perhaps we could best summarize it by saying it's when you judge a book by its cover. An example would be, I met two people from blank country and they were all rude. Therefore, everybody, and it's France, obviously it's France, everybody from France is rude. I grew up in eastern South Dakota, pretty close to the Minnesota border, and whenever people would see somebody driving around with Minnesota license plates, they would say, oh, that person sucks at driving. Or we would do this thing where it's like, oh, yep, typical Minnesota driver if we saw somebody, I don't know, doing something on the road. Now, this is pretty clearly problematic because relying on incomplete data or anecdotes, that doesn't give you a representative picture. Neither do lots and lots of anecdotes because data collection is very difficult. Even if you had a sample size of 1 million, if they weren't randomly selected, then you may have a totally biased and pretty junky data set. Hasty generalizations are lacking in adequate evidence. They lead to misrepresentation of entire groups, and they also oversimplify very complex issues. In a way, I suppose it is similar to scapegoating an individual. You take a complex problem or a complex system, and then we just reduce it to some sort of simplistic judgment, and we dump it all onto one. Well, actually, you start with individuals, and then you dump it on to the entire group. Some other examples, stereotyping. Kids these days are blank, blank, blank. And, well, that maybe represents the kids that you see, but what are all of the other tens of millions of children in the world like? Unfounded assumptions. The first, 2 hours of Red Dead Redemption 2 is really boring, so the entire game is really boring. Personal experience, which is incredibly powerful for us and what leads to maybe the biggest application of this fallacy, but saying something like, I got food poisoning once after I ate sushi, therefore sushi is dangerous. And then maybe the core of the whole thing is statistical insufficiency. My friends, they work from home and they're doing great. Therefore, everybody should work from home. Hasty generalizations, they themselves are rooted in cognitive biases. Probably the most powerful is confirmation bias and just our tendency to be lazy thinkers. We tend to notice and remember evidence that supports pre-existing beliefs that we all have or stereotypes that are just sort of prevalent in our culture, and we tend to ignore evidence to the contrary. So if you think everybody from France is rude and you go on vacation to Paris, how many people are you going to, run across while you're there? 100,000 or more? And if none of them say a single word to you, except 3 people were rude, then the conclusion you'll take away is people from this place are rude. This has already been discussed, but we also tend to, just like I did in that previous example, elevate our own personal experience to draw general conclusions. I see this with sports a lot and it drives me crazy. So I was watching some March Madness games, and you see a lot of teams in March Madness who you've never watched a single game they played all year. But there will be a little storyline or a stat line underneath a player from some team that you've never heard of until today. And then people will start talking about that player. Oh yeah, they so and so on and so on and so on. That drives me crazy because you just found out the first thing about this person, and now you're telling a story about what kind of player they are, what kind of person they are. Ultimately, hasty generalizations, they're powerful and they're kind of dangerous. We live in very complex societies, and in the United States, for example, we have over 325 million people. An anecdotal event in one place can then be used to draw massive conclusions about other people. I don't really need to tell you that immigration is viewed in that way thanks to the current political landscape we have and Donald Trump, but it might be the perfect example. Ultimately, what can we do about this? Well, we just need to do our homework. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.